This video is meant for only me, but most likely I might post it. But this is one of the most unprofessional videos probably ever on YouTube. But whatever. I'm eating, and since I left my house, I thought why not just, say, what's been on my mind. Recently, I was recording myself saying, and I noticed that even though I'm really good at singing, and I can get better, I can always improve. You can always improve. Everything can always improve. Is where my heart is. And I say that because a lot of people think that they don't know what they want to do, but I say it's not about thinking, it's about feeling. It's about needing, it's about wanting. What can't you live without? And then connect that to a career. If you can't live without video games, chances are you get into game designing or anything with gaming, it's your stride. It's your stride. Me, I can't live without a lot of things. Now that's more of a difficult problem because things are deeper than what it appears on the surface. And everybody's deepness is different. I may see certain fragments below the surface more than the next person, even if we are interested in the same thing or curious. Acting, comedy, voice acting, probably my first talent, developed wise. But growing up during the time, I didn't see it as a talent. And then acting came along. There were periods where outside of like going outside, especially without permission, I just was always adventurous. I just always wanted to do something. I was so curious. And I was about experimenting, and I had my first kiss way too early. I was exposed to a lot of things way early, especially pain. A lot of pain and trauma people experience around, things you would expect to experience and know, not experience, but actually know and understand in your 20s, probably teens or 20s or late or mid 20s, of things that like severe depression, intuition, how accurate it is that we're living in a matrix, the history of the world, why is society the way it is today, spiritual awakenings. And when you're that young, 10, 12, 13, 14, without as much internet access and without really a way to articulate how you feel, you just go based on how you feel and think. You're not really sure if this is true or not, you just living. And once you get a little older, you're like, wow, this is a spiritual awakening. This is what a spiritual awakening is. All the signs I experienced growing up is what I'm seeing. The more truth I say, the more I get in trouble. That's the number one thing I realized. The more truthful I was in myself and the more truthful I lived, I noticed some people literally gravitate toward you. They love and they admire and they're inspired by somebody outside of everybody in the class, one person out of 30 kids who is much more of themselves and in tune with themselves than the average person. The person who knows themselves just a little bit more than the average person. And not only that, accepts that. I was told all my life, like, I bring light to others. I'm not sure what that meant. At first, I'm thinking it was a cliche, or I'm thinking, they probably haven't seen my arguments and stuff, my disputes, throughout my life, but they speaking in general. For the most part, I'm pretty much a ball of fire. When I enter people's lives, if you give me a chance, kind of like Tupac said, if you give me a chance to grow, things can happen. You can understand me, and I can understand you. But if you just blow me off after one argument and condemn me for somebody I've totally not all my life, then you're not a person that I should be talking to in the first place because you don't even know what real empathy is. You know what sympathy is. Everybody knows what sympathy is, but not everybody understands the need and practice and importance of empathy. For me, if I have an attitude, it's because of things that you don't see possibly. You know, if you tell me one thing and then you tell me another, and we trying to help somebody, nursing wise, it will rub me the wrong way. I'm not even gonna lie. It will rub me the wrong way. And being as integrous as I am, I hold that against you. I have accountability. I have an accountability thing, and if you don't see it, then damn, that sucks for you. Then you're gonna think that I'm the bad guy, that I'm the one that has an attitude for no reason. When really, I'm seeing what you're doing. You're perpetuating something that isn't there, or you're creating something that isn't there out of how you feel. So, in other words, I'm an empath. But it's like a narcissistic parent or a parent who's bitter and angry and miserable in themselves to the point where they spread that to their own seeds, or the people they're raising in their life. Sometimes their own husband or wife. It rubs off on them. They're a different monster in the household than they are in public. In public, they're considered nice people, but in behind closed doors, they're monsters. Um, and then they shame the kids and they guilt trip the kids on things they perpetuated, that they caused, that they created out of their own miserableness and illusions. And then the kids grow up resentful, and it takes them longer than a person who hasn't been through the same thing to mature and accept what has happened and try to figure out a way how to approach and solve it differently than just lashing out. Kind of like how I used to do it. Because I thought the way I felt, sad, mad, happy, glad, whatever, I thought it was always justified because ain't that we ain't that what we supposed to be? Authentic? You know, you can't even reference a nice you can't even reference a nice cold drink by the beach um as your bucket list during a podcast talking about something that's probably a little different because people don't accept the fact that you're as flexible as them. And it's not about always you accepting who they are and their perceptions and respecting it. It's about them doing the same thing to you. I felt throughout my life, especially early on, that you know, yes, I'm pretty defiant, still am. I was born this way, I think. And I'm a person who never backs down. I'll shy away here and there. I'll be weak for a while. I'll be vulnerable. You know, but I'll always come back. You know, I always come back stronger and better and wiser. I've always been like that. I haven't learned this from anybody, but everybody. I learned this from everybody. I learned this from just being human. I learned this just by asking myself, what do I want? And then go from there. Do I choose to be a coward or do I choose to be courageous? So when people define me, it doesn't bother me and it doesn't define me. I'm much more than what people say. You're much more than what people say. They're much more than what I think they are. There's always more to learn. There's always something deeper behind the surface. All you have to do is if you read a lot of books, sometimes reading a lot of books doesn't do it justice. Sometimes to validate the things you've learned and accumulated throughout the years of research is to experience it firsthand, and vice versa. Some people are very limited in those aspects. They are so used to doing one thing so long, and then they're not used to exercising the other things to strengthen their arguments or strengthen their positive vibes or strengthen whatever they're on. Um, but to resurface back to what I was saying before, you know everything has layers. That's how I see. That's how I think. That's how I feel. That's how I am. I'm never gonna be shallow, no matter how hard I try, unless I play an actor. I mean, a character in a movie or a show or whatever. That's shallow. But I just refuse to be whatever the world wanted me to be. Either you accept me or you don't. And sometimes your own family, who in spite may be the people who are the most deceptive, try to tell you how to act, yet they're deceptive. That's just contradicting to me. They avoid people like their mom, their sister, and then when they talk to them, it's a totally different story. When they talk to them, they say things. See, nice people don't want to hurt. Two people who are too nice don't want to hurt your feelings. I'm nice, but I'm real. I'm nice, but I'm actually honest. I'm brutally honest. I'd rather be honest and nice and kind than just to be nice and not cause no trouble. I never been a person that didn't want to cause trouble just because I didn't want to say the truth. I'm always gonna speak my truth. I'm not gonna say it. Especially at this age, I'm not gonna say it everywhere I go and and put impose into people's faces like I used to do it. But when I was younger, I mean, when you're young, you have an excuse to do that because you're trying to make a name for yourself as a human being. But if that doesn't matter to you as much, you probably don't understand what I'm saying. But it's about identity, it's about character building, it's about um, growth, it's about transformation, and most importantly, it's about self awareness. Some of the most shallow people try to convince you to be more self aware, yet they're not even close to your stratosphere. Not that you're better than them in any way, but it doesn't make sense for you to tell somebody something that you aren't to be. I can see you building somebody up to say, oh yeah, you got great potential to become a great singer or something like that. But don't tell people to look in the mirror when you barely can look in the mirror yourself. Your whole life is superficial. Your whole life is materialistic. Your whole life is way more external than it is internal. So who are you to tell me to look in the mirror? You know what I'm saying? So if those people or somebody I know is like that watches this video and is like, wow, I never thought he was thinking that. Well, that just shows you that just shows you the amount of introspection you have. Because think about it. Sometimes a person like me who is very internal, they'll be around people or a specific person and they'll have things inside, judgmental or not or non-judgmental, and they would expect that person that they're learning these things or details from to know themselves. Maybe they're hiding it. Maybe they're shoving it under the rug. Maybe they're putting it in the drawer. And then your wife comes home, she finds out that you're cheating on her. But that just goes to show that the art of war is deception. Deception is just as real as reality. Perception is just as real. Every it's duality. The opposite of everything is the same side. It's the same thing. Positive, negative, black, white. You know, everything has gray areas. But my thing is that to be a little bit more like less like hard on others. You know, I learned late that the less hard I am on others, the less hard I'm on myself. Versus the less hard I'm on myself, the less hard I am on others. I constantly absorb things around me. I'm constantly in tune with my intuition. I'm constantly evolving, changing, growing, and consciously wanting to change and grow and learn. And it wasn't always like this because I thought being real meant or real with myself meant okay. I don't have to, you know. become this, this other person, like this goody two shoes, or this person who's a jerk in the hallway. I thought that whatever you are, you are. Turns out that's not the case. In time, even if you don't want it to happen, you're gonna start deconstructing parts of your old self to try to fit your present self and relive things that no longer works for you. And that's what I've been doing around like high schoolish. I definitely, in almost every way, even my sense of humor wasn't the same. Um, I have anger issues. My anger issues is no way near the way it used to be. My irritabilities are nowhere near how it used to be. My impulsive manners, my impulsive ways, you know, thank God I don't have a baby mama before I have a good job and all that stuff, or graduate and stuff. I could have easily like had many baby mamas, um, or a baby mama or whatever, because I'm that impulsive. But to to say why that hasn't happened, one of the reasons is because I went off what is wise and what is real more so than just the impulse. People don't have the discipline to be like, some people don't have the discipline to be like, you know what, I'm gonna wait and develop my values and make sure I meet somebody who's um just as a reflection of me as I am with them. And fuck with who you need to fuck with versus who you want to fuck with. And when you're a kid, you don't know no better, really, generally speaking. You're experiencing things, you're making mistakes, you're dating this person, dating that person. But when you get to when you're an old soul and you've seen it all, and also this is very important, when you don't ignore, and listen to this, when you don't ignore the things that aren't really seen by most people, you automatically are different. You automatically stand out. You automatically stand out. And that's how I felt. I always felt like an outsider. I felt like, wow, why can't people understand me? Then I realized I can flip my perception. I can flip it as many times as I want. So my point of this video is, the mind is as powerful as is the mind is more powerful than you really think. But the problem is sometimes your mind has a mind of its own. I'm gonna repeat that again. Sometimes your mind has a mind of its own. And if I don't care if this gets to a million people, I don't care if this gets to 1,000. As long as it gets to somebody, then maybe I can learn more about myself just by them saying what they learned from watching this video. The mind has a mind of its own. And we live in a world where a lot of people want you to, especially when I was growing up, they want you to, well, actually, especially now with this PC culture going on, they want you to suppress your emotions. Suppress your emotions. And emotional intelligence is the first thing that I can say that I felt as my strong suit. I personally think emotional intelligence still is my strong suit. But I've developed and worked on and expound on my logic part, that I somehow am more balanced because of that. If I wasn't as logical as I am now versus back then, as far as like how to handle conflict situations, man, or reasonable or understanding, man, I wouldn't be sitting here making this video right now. I probably will be, you know, back in the mental institution. Um, but sometimes insane people make you go insane. Some people have this black and white thinking that just because you was in a mental institution or you was in jail or a place where on the outside, yeah, let's identify him as this or her as this. The truth is, when you're for truth, you automatically are the fugitive. You automatically are the fugitive to some people. I'm not saying everybody. I'm saying some people, even in your own family. They're like, "Why is he talking like that?" Get on your medication. And they're not even educated enough to know what prescription pills can do. Underline can do to your brain chemistry. It can alter your brain chemistry. It can alter your perceptions. It can alter your way of life. It can literally change the way you think. And sometimes, a lot of times for the worse. You can't even, your cognitiveness is not the same once you're on or off it. Now, as a bipolar manic, our cognitive, our cognitiveness, as far as the gray parts in our brain, there's not a lot of gray parts in our brain than more than the average person. We don't have a lot of gray in our brain. Um, but here's how I balance it out. If you consciously make it where you perceive life as gray, then it becomes a lot easier to manage the disorder. That's just what works for me. So take all the things I said in this rant. I'm not even sure what my exact point was, but sometimes I could trail off like that if I don't have an exact topic. But I'm sure all of everything I said in this video makes sense in terms of everything correlating to each other. I hope it does. But sometimes, like, I want to say more than just one thing. Um, Being different is never a wrong thing. Being different is never a bad thing. If you're different and you're making changes in people's lives for the better, in your own way, your own unique way, don't let anyone ever try to convince you that your way is not the right way because your way is not their way. Especially when it comes to family. They're always sometimes there's not a lot of people understand this, but everybody's reality is a tad bit different than others, but it's a lot similar than you think. Traumatized people can't hear from people who haven't been traumatized. I think that's a quote by Dr. Mark Goulston. Um, so for me, growing up, I couldn't speak to people who weren't traumatized. I couldn't really open up to them because I'm like, maybe they won't understand me. I can only talk to people who went through probably what I went through. And then as I got older and mature and a little bit more open-minded, I realized do what I was doing anyway. Open up anyway, just not when you're angry. Just not only when you're angry. Open up like you've been doing, Tony. Be a kid at heart, but also in mind. Be who you was in the first place. Don't try to morph into what the world can tolerate you as. Be who you are anyway. And this type of thinking is extremely important, especially for these generations coming up. To never be afraid to say, do, and be who you truly are. Don't hide who you are. Don't feel like others define you. Define yourself. What you think of yourself is greater than what others think of you. I'm not perfect. There are times where I'm like, damn, I wanna, I wish people understood me. Then it was times where I'm like, you know what, whatever, I don't care. Like I'm just one of those people that's mindset changes way more rapidly than the average person, and I think it's partially because of my disorder, and I also think it's because, I'm constantly learning, and when you're constantly learning, reading, being objective of yourself, like it's like an out of body experience. You're looking at yourself outside of yourself. Then you automatically won't be as relatable to as many people. But as long as they're willing to listen, you're willing to share. You all can grow together. So to sum up this video, I'm gonna get to my last point. When I left my house, I was thinking, wow, you know, all the things I know of acting and the things that go into it, these quote unquote um, rituals and stuff that goes on behind the scenes and stuff, and that's the bad side. Then on the other side is the happy side, which is doing what you love, possibly if possible, hooking up with the best and right producers for you, writers, etc., the best cast, and then this back and forth between negative and positive and gray and you know um, you know all these things that whole type of thinking goes into everything in your life. 50% of the things that happen to you happen because of your mindset, and 50% of that happens in your life happens in spite of you. That's a quote by Zoe Williams. I'm not sure if it's his quote, but I think it's just a fact. Um but yeah, like, somebody might say, "Oh, that person's really talented. Why haven't they made it?" Maybe it's because they don't perceive their talent as making it. Maybe they perceive their talent as just a tool they can use, but really they need and want to do something else. Why don't they want to be a hard worker? It's not about just being a hard worker. It's about being a smart worker. Their perception of living or surviving or both is probably totally different than yours. The only difference is that they're strong enough mentally to admit it, to say, you know what, I'm not you. I have the balls, I have the cojones to say, I'd rather work smarter than just harder. And everything I'm probably saying in this video, probably your own sibling, your own cousin, all that stuff don't even know, but they shouldn't, because they don't know you. Period. They they shouldn't. And I'm not saying they're obligated. I'm saying don't try to convince others of what they should have known in the first place. Of And for me, like, you ask opinions, you ask advice, but don't take it with a grain of salt. When I got off stage a few weeks ago and my music cut off, I was singing, and I sat down. This lady I met before I went on stage, she was from Boston, and her husband was from Boston. They was in New York for some business stuff, business related stuff. And she said, "I admire your tenacity." And I was like, I know that about myself. I've always known that. From standing up to bullies, from severe depression, from nihilism thoughts, from feeling like you're too intuitive, from feeling like you are aware of things that people shame you for, that they don't want to own up to because they'll be the bad guy, but they have to make you the bad guy. All these things, and you're like, a stranger, a beautiful person too. Her and her husband seem like great people. A stranger told me something that your own close friend would have to think hard about. And that's just it. Sometimes it's the people we choose to be in our life, and sometimes those people choose you. But bottom line, we're here to learn from each other. That goes for everybody, even parents who justify treating their kids a certain way because they're the breadwinner. And the next thing you know, those kids get older, those kids don't even visit those parents or that parent. They're resentful. They're bitter. They for their whole life because they didn't want to address who they are. Some people be like, "Don't be a victim ever." No, it's not be. Not it's just because I'm a victim today doesn't mean I'm acting like I'm a victim all the time. And especially when you're complaining about somebody who complains 24/7. You complain to them one time, and they all of a sudden think you're a villain. All the time. It's amazing how people can fabricate things. But I'll say this: the solution to that is take note of that, be aware of that, and just keep it pushing. Because those people, when I said that, know who they are. They'll fabricate it. They'll define you by rumors, by people who don't even know you. Those people never even hanged out with you. Their gospel is gossip. Gossip is their gospel. Like I said in my poem, gossip is their gospel. Mine, well, much more than that. So to go back to this career thing, your calling ties into everything and beyond that. To really accept and acknowledge and go with it, you know. And some people have the guts to live more than they have the guts to survive, because they know that survival is a game. Survival is a game, but so is living, because living is just a different type of game. Survival means survival of the fittest. It's a dog a dog world. You know, living is surviving while thriving. Surviving while thriving. Surviving while inspiring. Surviving while dying. Surviving while trying. It's a little bit more than just surviving. It means appreciating the little things, acknowledging that your parent at home is a piece of shit at times, and nobody in their family wants to acknowledge it because they quote unquote take care of you, or a teacher, you know, pretty much putting you in a bad light because they want to acknowledge that the fact that they let you do what you did, only they blamed you for it. So it's like a lot of like unaccountability. So really, at the same time, who's really the victim? Who's really the victim? The guy who's like me, who's like, yeah, I did it, or this is what's happening. This is my mistake. Or a person who's like, well, this is what the person did to me, and this is what the, like 24/7. Who's the victim? Who's the victim? For me, it's not about being a victim. It's about how long you are being a victim. How long are you a victim? How long? How long do you want to be a victim? That's up to you. But nobody should judge you for that. Everybody has their own time of getting to a point where they're like, okay, I can rise above this. But so many times we project our reality to others and expect them to be who we are or what we should do or we would do. I'm gonna end this by saying this quote, and then I'm gonna finish this career thing. It's this quote. I forgot who said it, but people can, people can only meet you as deeply as they meet themselves. People can only meet you as deeply as they meet themselves. That quote humbles the fuck out of me. That quote humbles the fuck out of me, because that basically offsets everything I almost said in this video as far as um you know convincing others and explaining yourself more than you should and all that stuff. You get to a point where you're like, you know what? You right, brother. You right, sister. You right. I'ma just walk my own path, and that's the point. You walk your own path. That Rolling Stone mother or father never want to acknowledge what they've done, the fact that their family is separated, but they'll acknowledge the fact that they can say sorry and act like nothing happened. They're that vulnerable with you to just say sorry. What's sorry? What is sorry? You didn't explain anything that I know that you've done, and I ain't explained that nothing that I have done. So at the same time, people throw these labels at you, but really it's about them not being accountable for who they are. Because it's pretty obvious. I'm always accountable for what I do or say. I just don't. I'm just like one of those people that if I'm misunderstood, I'm gonna speak on it. That's the only thing. If I'm not misunderstood, I'm not misunderstood. But if I'm misunderstood, obviously I'm gonna be vocal about it. People can only meet you as deeply as they meet themselves. So don't be hard on them. That's one thing I learned late. Like you probably not hard on them in like outside externally too much as much as you are inside, but you are hard on them inside. You're like, wow, why doesn't that person get it? Like, or don't be hard on others. Patience. Now, acting for me has a different fulfillment than stand-up comedy and writing and poetry and singing. Singing. I can't sing right now because it's cold and I'm not really in the mood to sing. But I'm really thinking about taking my singing career way more seriously. You know, and after I nail one of these job interviews in the next summer, I mean, this coming up summer, I have an interview Friday. This coming up Friday, and all these things that's coming up. All these things is opportunities. It goes to show that a person who used to self sabotage because they didn't think that they were brilliant, even though they were to others. They're like, man, he's intelligent. Man, he's bright. Man, he's nice. Man, he's talented. But they don't think of that themselves as much, or they don't want to accept that. They don't want to acknowledge or even brag because sometimes you're modest. You're like, I don't want to be. But you're probably one of those people that's like me at first. You're afraid to succeed. You're afraid to succeed because when you succeed, people try to tear you down. When you succeed, people try to tear you down. And it's not that you can't handle it. It's the fact that you probably went in your room or stopped being as social as you were, and you just like your whole lifestyle changed and shifted into this person who is more of a loner, and it's because of you're doing the cleansing that needs to be. Instead of people putting two and two together, you're healing. You're healing behind those doors in that basement you stay at a lot of the time by yourself. You're healing from the things that you went through. So nobody who, especially who hasn't been in your shoes or yet at least has been around you, can say anything that's validated or has anything that has validity to it. All they can go based off is what they want to think. Because once you talk to these people, depending on who they are, you get to the point where you start arguing because you're battling each other's perceptions. You're the person who walked your shoes, and they're the person that didn't see your shoes until they got 18 years old when they wanted all of a sudden kick it with you and hang out with you. When they even do that in the beginning. But that makes you look better. But all you're doing is pointing out the obvious. You're saying what it is. You're not trying to treat them a certain way or whatever. It's normal to have an attitude about something that bothers you. Like if somebody has an attitude and that rubs off on you, you have the right to say, okay, I mean, your mind to say, okay, it's not me. Especially if you're a sensitive person. So it's real. I tie all these things into it and more. It's obviously not this is not my whole mindset and thinking and knowledge and stuff and going into my careers, but I take these things along with whatever I'm gonna do. And this is something that when you're a kid, you don't really know all these type of things. You're just going based off spontaneous thrills and impulse and stuff like that. You're just going based off how you feel, your heart. And I come to realize that if J Lo said to everybody, you know what, I can do this. I can sing, I can dance, I can act, I can. I don't know if she produces, but I can do a lot of things. If I can do it, so can you. Those people are showing you. Those type of people are showing you that it can be done. It just takes an infinite amount of patience, the right support system, and a lot of failures. And once you fail a lot, you learn how to win. Once you go through depression, you know how to smile. I was always that kid in class, most of the time, trying to make people laugh because I was sad within myself. I was so sad that I didn't even know I was sad until I left class. Because it wouldn't dawn on me. sadness wouldn't dawn on me until I wasn't around people. So my message is, you shouldn't be battling what you want to do in your life, who you are in your life. You should be taking everything in consideration and then questioning that. Keep questioning. Questioning leads to more questions. That's the point of life. That's if you choose to do that. That's the point. You have a choice. I have a choice. Stand-up comedy has different fulfillment. Acting has different fulfillment. It's all a matter of how I perceive it and how I handle whatever comes from that. If I have a great agent, I have a great agent. And if I have a agent that's trying to fuck me out of money, I have an agent that's trying to fuck me out of money. I don't care how deep I get into my thinking. I always come back around with, it's all about balance. It's all about balance. Don't try to convince people that don't even care about your reasons in the first place. They only care about what they think. They think it's funny until you're no longer around them. For good or for worse. I say that just be realistic. For good or for worse. So I'm gonna end this video. I thank you for watching. It's a long video. This type of video, even though I said a few curse words, I think this type of video is for everybody. Um, uh, and I hope you learn from it as much as I did. Because sometimes when I just talk and rant, I hear things that I forget, or I hear things that you know I sometimes have to remind myself. Because like I said, I'm not perfect. I'm not 24/7, you know, lazy or 24/7 on the go. I learned that balance is key. I used to be one of the most scribe kids in the world. Like I did everything. I ice skated, I went on trips, I went around. I freaking played basketball all my life, and then I stopped. And then it became a matter of, okay, being chill is kind of comfortable. Then it became too comfortable. Then you get to the point where you stop exercising. So then I realized, like, you know what? I deserve to like chill for a while. Like I've been athletic all my life. I've been athletic during times where I should have been busy with my schoolwork and stuff. I deserve a little kickback. Those same people who are saying go outside and be active are the same people who will judge you if you're not active. Because think about it. Now I'm gonna end this video, but this is an important notion too. They were saying the same thing that they were saying when you was out. Why you always outside? Why you always outside? Why you always outside? Yet those people lack balance way more than you. Those people lack balance way more than you. It's hilarious. They have all the bills in the world, they have all the money, but they have very little experience in the things that you've experienced. But it just goes to show that some people don't want to learn from others. They only want to teach others. My message is, be a student and then a teacher. Student then a teacher. Fluctuate. You have to fluctuate. If somebody's saying and bigging you up, yo, you should do this, you should do that. I'm like, first of all, you're not even gonna help me with what I'm doing, because you would be helping me if you was telling me to do this. Why don't you help me? Come on board. But no, you want me to do what you want me to do, because I'm another self of you in another reality. But thank you. That's the hard truth. And a lot of times you have to hold back when you mature. When you mature and you know how to deal with people, you don't speak that hard truth as much as you used to, because you're not just going off emotion. And you have to have a little bit more, I don't know, I don't know. But I'm gonna end this video here. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go home, relax, and yeah. Bye.